Serious presidential candidate, at times he's been viewed as a figure of fun.
Me interviewing me, that's what I call a great idea.
Of course it's a great idea. We thought of it.
In spite of the reality TV persona, Trump has been on the sidelines of the political arena before. In 1999, he ran as a presidential candidate for the Reform Party ahead of the 2000 elections.
I'll either be the greatest developer in the country or the greatest president that you've had in a long time.
But Trump bowed out of the race early on.
Via con Dios, folks. We'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.
And then, on the 16th of June last year, he threw his hat into the ring for the race for the Republican Party nomination.
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
And nobody took him seriously.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president. And the reason is because I have a lot of faith in the American people.
I think that's the beginning of the end of Donald Trump as a presidential candidate.
Think of Donald Trump's personal qualities. The bullying, the greed, the showing off, the misogyny.
But everybody had underestimated him, and Trump's campaign has continued to pick up momentum, taking the US by storm, one primary at a time.
He's just a tough leader. He's ready to address the problems that need to be solved. I mean, ISIS, immigration, the economy, trade with China, etc. The list goes on.
Are you having fun, Donald? It seems to me you're having an incredible ride on this presidential race, even though you've been getting flack left, right and centre. Are you actually enjoying yourself?
I am because the results are good. I think if I was in last place, you know, I started off with 17 people. 17 people were vying for the title. And I was the only, you know, I'm not a politician, so you have all these senators and governors, and they've been doing it all their lives. I'd never done it before. You know, I've only been doing this for 8 months, Piers. So, you know, people are sort of surprised that I'd be in first place by so much. It's not even first place by a little bit. I'm in first place by 20, 25 points. So it's been, you know, it's been a lot. And we'll know over the next 4 or 5 weeks what happens. But I've really enjoyed it. I think I'm enjoying it because I'm doing well at it. I think if I wasn't doing well at it, I wouldn't be enjoying it. You know, I just see what's happening. It's been an amazing thing. And I think the people of our country, they're dealing with politicians all the time where everything's okay, where our military, you know, if you look at our military, it's in bad shape. If you look at our veterans, they're being badly taken care of. If you look at the borders, they're like Swiss cheese. People just pouring right over the borders with drugs and everything else, and crime. Our healthcare system is terrible. Obamacare is a disaster. Our educational system is terrible. Our country is really broken. And on top of it, we owe $19 trillion. And they hear me talking about it, and they believe in me. And it's been incredible. I'm telling you, I set up a rally recently where we set it up on 1 day's notice, and 22,000 people showed up the following day. And it's, you know, that's standard. So there's something going on, and I think it's something very positive, and the people feel good about it.
With an existing reputation for strong opinions, his rhetoric during the rallies has gone a step further. Much of what he said on the campaign trail has been more than just a little controversial.
Mexico, when I say we're building a wall, we're going to build a wall. Believe me.
Migration, the people from Syria, we don't know. Are they ISIS? Are they not? They're not coming into this country, okay? They can't.
And it's his views on how to deal with the current threat from the so-called Islamic State, which have perhaps caused the biggest uproar. On Tuesday, the Belgian capital of Brussels and the heart of the European Union were struck by a devastating terrorist attack. This was a coordinated onslaught believed to have been executed by men radicalized inside European communities.
Give me your reaction to what has happened.
Well, I think it's outrageous. I think that when they caught the young person, the person that was in charge, or I guess he probably wasn't totally in charge, they don't even know who was in charge of the Paris bombings. When they caught him, he was in his neighborhood and where he grew up, and nobody even turned him in, and supposedly this is retribution for that. I think it's a disgrace. I knew Brussels years ago, and I was there probably 3 or 4 times, and it was so beautiful and so secure and so safe. And now it's an armed camp, and I'm even talking before this new bombing. It's like a different world, a different place. There's no assimilation. What's going on there and what's going on in many other locations like Paris and others is a disgrace, an absolute disgrace that we allow it to happen.
Obviously, the big question is, what does the world do about ISIS? Nobody at the moment seems to have a real game plan for stopping these kind of terror attacks. You've put forward some pretty controversial views for what you think should be done. But in light of what's happened in Belgium and in Paris and indeed on mainland America, just clarify for me what you would do. If you were President of the United States tomorrow, what would you do and what would you tell countries in Europe to do to combat ISIS?
Well, obviously, it's a very long and complicated question, but I would hit ISIS so hard you wouldn't believe it, and I'd get the people over there to put up their soldiers because it's about time that somebody did it. But I'd have such backup like you've never seen before in terms of air power, airstrikes, etc. And you've got to take them out, and you've got to take them out harshly, and you've got to take them out fast. And you have no choice. These people, you know, we're now in the age of chopping off heads. Nobody would have believed this was possible. And I would hit them very hard, very fast. I was against going into Iraq, if you remember, a long time ago. I was against it from the beginning. And that was a terrible mistake going into Iraq because it destabilized the entire Middle East. Then Obama got out in the worst possible way. He left nothing behind. He gave a date, which nobody could believe. But you've got to take out ISIS, despite all of that. You've got to take them out, and you've got to take them out fast and hard. Now, that doesn't solve the problem of all of these people that are living in Brussels and living in many, many cities. I hate to even mention the cities, but cities that have such problems where the police are literally afraid to go into the neighborhoods. You know that's true, and I know that's true, and people don't even like to talk about it. But it's absolutely true. And in many cases, they only believe and they only want Sharia law, which is terrible in terms of everything, and especially terrible for women and the way they treat women. So you have to hit things hard, and you have to be vigilant.
Trump knows these views will be unpopular with some, and they will always create perfect headline fodder. And there's one particular issue over which we have butted heads in the past.
If you take Paris, they just killed 130 people. If you had a few people standing on the other side of the room that had guns to their waist or guns wrapped around their ankle, it wouldn't have been the same thing, Piers.
Have a good Friday and a great Easter.
Thunderbirds are go. Sorry, did you want to say that?
She's such a timeless figure.
To actually reach the age of 90 is an astonishing achievement.
The Queen!
Mr. Keller, great.
The man you're looking for is a man of taste.
He makes no mistakes.
Kane! Smashed it in!
Happy Easter from ITV.
There's been another one, Chief.
I have to try to draw him out before he kills again.
Mr. Keller, great.
You put policewoman on the street last night is great.
The whole of Paris has theories, Chief Inspector.
You feel special, even though you're not, are you?
Rowan Atkinson is May Gray, a new feature-length drama, Easter Monday at 9 on ITV.
What a great, look at this. Oh, look at that, Latinos! I love you, darling.
Donald Trump is a man who courts controversy to great effect.
We have a silent majority that's no longer so silent. It's now the loud, noisy majority, and we're going to be heard. We're going to be heard.
He is now odds-on favourite to become the Republican nominee for this year's presidential election. But there is one topic on which he and I fiercely disagree.
Every year in America, 100,000 people are hit by gunfire, of whom 32,000 die. That's 85 deaths from guns every single day in this country.
It's an issue I feel very strongly about, but Donald Trump couldn't disagree with me more. He believes, like many Americans, in his right to bear arms under the Second Amendment of the US Constitution. It's an argument we've had many times, and we had it again.
You and I have locked horns about this issue many times. You're firmly in favour of Second Amendment rights, the right to bear arms. I obviously have had a position against that, but I'm not an American citizen. If you were President of the United States, what would you do, notwithstanding your support for the Second Amendment, to try and reduce the level of gun violence in America, which we both, I'm sure, would admit is completely unacceptable?
And it's really one of the few things that we disagree. We're very much on opposite sides. And I've always said, and you did very well, your show was fantastic, but I would also say this, had you not taken that view, and maybe you want to be exactly where you are right now, because from what I hear, you're doing phenomenally, but you would still be doing your show on CNN if you wanted to do it. And I think it was your choice maybe not to do it. But you were met with tremendous, I remember people didn't like you over that one issue, and you know that better than I do. I think it was really, I think it was in a way very brave of you, because I know it was very negative for what you did, very, very negative for you. I will say this, if you take Paris, and if there were a few guns on the other side of that room, there were no guns. You know, Paris has among the strictest gun laws in the world, as you know, and so does France. If you had Paris where you had these thugs going in there and shooting people, and they just go boom, boom, you get over here, boom. They just killed 130 people. There wasn't another gun in the room. They had all the guns, right? If you had a few people standing on the other side of the room that had guns to their waist or guns wrapped around their ankle, it wouldn't have been the same thing, Piers. Number one, it might not have happened at all, because people would have said, oh, there are guns in there, I'm not going to go there. And number two, if it did happen, at least you'd have bullets going the opposite direction. And that's a hard one for you to debate. And I don't want to debate it with you because I think it's unfair.
Well,
but that's really a hard one for you to debate.
The only point I'd make back at you, because I know where you stand on this, and I've heard you say that about Paris before. I guess the point I'd make is that America has more guns than any country on the planet, but it also has more gun violence. So there appears to be a correlation between volume of guns in a society and the amount of gun violence. We in Britain, for example, last year had about 35 gun deaths. America will have 85 today and tomorrow and the next day. And so I guess I come back to my question, really, is simply, if you were president, what would you try and do to reduce the level of gun violence in America?
Okay. Well, if you've watched, and I know you believe in this also, and it's not going to ever fully answer your question because I understand where you're coming from, but there is a tremendous mental health problem in the United States, because remember, it's a person that pulls the trigger. It's not the trigger that pulls itself. And there's a tremendous mental health problem in the United States. And for cost reasons, which is ridiculous, but nevertheless, it's there, many of the cities, many of the big cities are closing their mental hospitals. And people are out on the street that should not be out on the street. You have a huge mental health problem in this country. And if you look at some of the killings, some of the terrible killings in, you know, when the school shootings, the movie shootings, these were really mentally ill people that should have been institutionalized, and everybody knew it. And as soon as they went to the neighborhood to find out, get some information on these people, they said, oh, well, you know, they've been sick for a long time, and, you know, they lived alone with the mother, and the mother knew. In one case, the mother was, you know, totally available to say that the boy was a sick boy. And what they do is they've cut so far back on mental health. They're closing institutions for cost saving, for dollars, because they want to, you know, they can't afford them or something. And these people are out on the street. That is a big, big factor as to what's happening, as you understand. I mean, that's one of the big factors.
Trump may believe that mental health issues are behind America's shockingly high levels of gun violence. But people with mental illness are more likely to be victims of gun crime than perpetrators, with studies showing that less than 5% of all gun crime in the US is attributable to mental illness.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
But it was this comment that made the world sit up and listen.
No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA. No Trump.
And his critics were quick to respond.
I think his remarks are divisive, stupid and wrong, and I think if he came to visit our country, I think he'd unite us all against him.
when some of these statements are made that fuel this idea of bigotry and really fuel this, the thing that terrorists themselves want, that Muslims are apart from the West and cannot be seen as equal citizens.
We no longer can be silent. And I want to remind you that Trump is just a distraction.
Right. Yes.
Let me put something to you that David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, said after you came out with your statement that you wanted a short-term ban on Muslims entering the US until, quotes, we figure out what's going on. David Cameron said this: Donald Trump is making a fundamental mistake of trying to blame all of Islam and all Muslims for what is the ideology and the actions of a minority. In many ways, it actually helps extremists because they want to create a clash of civilizations between Islam and the West. What Donald Trump says, in my view, is not only wrong, but actually makes the work we need to do to confront and defeat extremists more difficult. What's your response to that?
Well, all you have to do is look at the cities where this has taken place, where there's been a large inflow, and something's different. I mean, it's different. There's no assimilation. There's very little assimilation for whatever reason. There's laws that they don't want to go by. They want to go by their own sets of laws. There is trouble no matter where you're looking, and all I want to do is solve the problem. And I called for a ban, a temporary ban on Muslims coming into the United States. And I will tell you, they went out to polls on that, and I didn't do it for the polls. I never even discussed polling when I did that. And you know me well enough to know that that's the way I work. I didn't go down to a pollster like most of these politicians who are all losing very badly to me, and they don't know what happened. They've never seen anything like it. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And all it is common sense. I speak common sense. I didn't go to a pollster. I just said what was on my mind. And I said, there's a problem here. There is a serious, serious problem. We had a shooting in California where a young radicalized couple shot 14 coworkers that they got along with. Actually, they were throwing a baby shower for their baby. And then they went in and they killed all 14 people and just shot them brutally. And then you had the Paris attacks, and who's ever seen anything like this? So there is something wrong, and we have to get to the bottom of it. When somebody like who was just captured was really coddled and taken care of by people that live in the neighborhood, and many people knew he was there, and yet he was the #1 wanted fugitive in the world. And he was there, and everybody knew he was there. Everybody from that area knew he was there. Nobody turned him in. There's something going on, and there's something wrong. You know it, Piers, and so do I.
What people have said, Donald, is they believe that you're essentially anti-Muslim. And let me quote George Clooney, who's come out for Hillary Clinton. He said, if you listen to the loudest voices out there today, you'd think we're a country that hates Mexicans, hates Muslims, and thinks that committing war crimes is the best way to make America great again. He's obviously talking about you here and the wall you suggested to keep out illegal immigrants, Mexican illegal immigrants, and also what you said about a short-term ban on Muslims coming to America, and the fact you endorsed waterboarding and other forms of torture for terror suspects. When George Clooney says that, he's kind of positioning you, in his eyes, as being anti-Muslim. Are you anti-Muslim?
I'm not anti-anything. I'm just common sense. I mean, I just say it like it is. Doesn't make any difference to me. If I don't win, I'm leading by a lot. But if I don't win the presidency, you know I'm going to have a much easier life, to be honest with you. And I'm doing this, it's Make America Great Again. I mean, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm giving back something. It's a very difficult situation. It's a very difficult thing to do. You know, running for president is not exactly easy. You're never home. You're out all the time. You're, you know, meeting thousands of people. I have rallies. If I have a 20,000 person rally, it's almost like a small rally it's become. People are sick and tired of what's happening to our country. And I think you're sick and tired probably in your own way of what's going on in different countries that you know, and including perhaps your own country. But people are sick and tired of what's happening to our country with all of the crime, with all of the drugs pouring in through the borders. You know, we have crime coming through our southern border. We have tremendous drugs pouring through our southern border. I won New Hampshire in the big New Hampshire primary. And one of the things that they told me more than anything else, the biggest problem they had was drugs. They have drugs that sells for less than candy. And they're all of their, I mean, much of their youth is tremendously addicted. I don't know what it is with New Hampshire, the most beautiful area you've ever seen. And they're addicted, seriously addicted to drugs, heroin. And I said, if I win, I'm going to do something about that. And the way you do it is to strengthen up that southern border. And we're going to build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for the wall. We're going to build a wall, and we're going to have very strong borders. And by the way, Piers, I want people to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. I want Hispanics, I want everybody to come into the country, but they have to come in through a system, and they have to come in legally.
I think the way it was characterized was that your call for Muslims to be banned effectively meant that you were racist, that you were anti-Muslims per se.
Yeah.
If there are British Muslims watching this interview now, they'll be probably having that view of you from what they have seen and heard, because you've not given a major interview until now. What is your message to British Muslims who are law-abiding, who are not violent, and who are as horrified by what has been going on in Brussels and Paris, and indeed in London, as we are?
Well, I say stay the course, and I have great respect for Muslims. I have many friends that are Muslims. I'm just saying there is something with a radicalized portion that is very, very bad and very dangerous. And one of the things I say is you have to turn people in. They knew that, as an example, the killers in California that killed the 14 people, they knew, a lot of people in the community knew they were going to do it, because in their apartment they had bombs all over the floor. People would walk into the apartment, they'd see bombs all over the apartment. That's not like exactly a normal place, right? And they didn't report them. They never reported them. They never reported the #1 wanted person in the world was the person who was just captured on Friday or whatever. And nobody reported him. But he was living in the community. He was living right there in the community, and nobody ever reported him. Because I don't know what it is. It's like they're protecting each other, but they're really doing very bad damage. And they have to open up to society. They have to report the bad ones. And, you know, if you report the bad ones, all of a sudden you're not going to have the kind of problems. Now they're expecting big bomb attacks all over the place in retribution for what happened to him because they caught him. He killed 130 people in Paris. There are many people right now in the hospital that are mortally wounded, that are gravely wounded, will never be the same. They're still in the hospital, and some will die. And this was all a few people walking into a couple of places, shooting innocent people who didn't have guns, by the way. So there's something going on. And I would say this to the Muslims, and in the United States also. When they see trouble, they have to report it. They're not reporting it. They're absolutely not reporting it. And that's a big problem.
The British Muslim community has hit back by fiercely rejecting Trump's claims that they're not doing enough to combat extremism. And both the government and the police in the UK have insisted that the Muslim community is helping in the fight against radicalisation. Donald's private life has been almost as turbulent as his political one. He married Ivana in 1977, and they had 25 years together and 3 children. They divorced in 1992 after a much publicised affair with Marla Maples, who became his second wife. They separated in 1997, and a year later Donald met Slovenian model Melania Knauss. They wed in 2005 in a lavish ceremony rumoured to have cost a cool $1 million. And who was on the guest list? Why, none other than Mr. and Mrs. Hillary Clinton.
You also have another great asset in this race, which is your wife, Melania, who is a legal immigrant to America and has spoken very proudly about the legal fight she fought there. Is that one of the reasons that you feel so strongly about immigration, that your own wife had to battle quite hard to be a legal immigrant in America?
I don't think so. She did have to battle hard, and she went through a process, and she was very successful. She was a model, and she was very, very successful, and she'd come back and forth between Europe and the United States. But I don't think that's the reason. I would hear stories like, for instance, Syria. In Syria, if you were a Christian, it was virtually impossible. I'm talking about before all of this conflict, before the migration. If you were a Christian, it was impossible to come into this country virtually. And this is by the experts, the people that do this, the people that do nothing but study it. They study that, the trends, etc. If you were a Muslim and you were from Syria, it was the easiest place to come into the country. In other words, so they would take Muslims from Syria, but they wouldn't take Christians from Syria. And I'd say why? Who knows why? Nobody ever gave me the definitive answer. But if you were a Christian from Syria, now, they're the ones who were being persecuted. So they're the ones that you should take before the Muslims. but we didn't take him. It was almost impossible to come into the country. I thought that was disgraceful. So there are a lot of reasons. Our system is broken. Our system in the United States is broken, but obviously it's broken in plenty of other places. I used to talk about our politicians as being not very smart, but if you look at what's going on in Europe and the rest of the world, a lot of people aren't so smart.
If Donald wins the Republican nomination, it's looking likely to be Trump versus Clinton for the ultimate political prize.
Well, she's close to incompetent. She's not a leader, and I don't think she has the strength or the energy to be president.
Celebrate the birthday of our longest reigning monarch.
She's such a timeless figure.
To actually reach the age of 90 is an astonishing achievement.
She's always around, wanting tea and jerk chicken.
An inside look.
You can feel the emotion.
Told by the people who know her best.
His great-grandmother, actually, he calls her Gan.
She's been there, done it, got the T-shirt.
I've been asking her for years what her secret is. She won't tell me.
Queen! Our Queen at 90. Easter Sunday at 8 on ITV.
If we're gonna do it right.
Germany v England. England v Holland. With the Euros in sight, there's no such thing as a friendly.
If we're gonna do it right.
Germany v England. Easter Saturday at 7:30, live and free on ITV.
Donald Trump has made plenty of enemies since he first threw his hat in the presidential ring 8 months ago. Even the Pope has joined in, castigating Trump for his plan to build a wall to stop illegal immigrants pouring over the border from Mexico. And yet within every controversial statement lies an inherent belief in Trump that somehow America needs saving, and he is the only person that knows how to do it.
We are going to make America great again. We are going to make America greater, greater, greater than it's ever been before.
It's a line that might sound familiar.
For those who've abandoned hope, we'll restore hope and we'll welcome them into a great national crusade to make America great again.
And one that many of his peers fiercely reject.
Now, it's easy to talk about making America great again. You could even print that on a baseball cap.
You don't make America great by tearing down everything that made America great.
And as the lengthy process of primary elections draws closer to its conclusion, it looks increasingly likely that it will be a Trump versus Clinton battle for the White House. And that has all the hallmarks of becoming a brutal war of words.
If you see bigotry, oppose it. If you see violence, condemn it. If you see a bully, stand up to him.
Hillary Clinton, of course, voted in favour of
That's
the
right.
Iraq War, and if it was a head-to-head between you two, I'd imagine that would be a major stick with which you may go after her, metaphorically. Hillary's called you a bigot and a bully. What's your view of Hillary?
Well, she's close to incompetent. Look, every decision she's made such bad decisions, including the emails and including Whitewater and including everything. So I think she's close to incompetent as far as decision-making is concerned. She's not a leader, and I don't think she has the strength or the energy to be president. You need tremendous strength and tremendous energy, and I don't see it with Hillary.
You are a few months away, potentially, from becoming the leader of the free world, President of the United States. Some people, a poll in the New York Times said half of all voters find the idea of President Trump terrifying. People in Britain have said they're so terrified they want to try and ban you. What is your reaction or response to people who are scared of Donald Trump and terrified of a Donald Trump presidency?
Well, I don't think too many are. I mean, honestly, I'm a very normal person. I happen to be intelligent, very intelligent, I guess, based on certain results that I get at, doing things. But I'm a person that just wants to see things run properly. I don't want to see people hurt. I don't want to see crime. If you look as an example, I took heat over the southern border. I took heat over the wall, all of that. Now everybody agrees that I'm right. And the crime coming through the southern border was astronomical, and people weren't even talking about it. If I didn't bring it up, it would not have even been a subject. I have a very good chance of winning. If I don't win, I have a very different kind of a life. And if I do win, I'll work very hard to make our country a safer place. I want to have a safe country. I want to have a really great country. I want to build up our military so we don't have to use it. Our military is very depleted. You know, they cut way back, and our military is very depleted. So I want to build up our military so that we don't have to use it.
Donald may have his critics of the States, but his solutions to the threat from Muslim extremists have also generated a huge backlash here too.
I would invite him to come and see the whole of London and take him round the city, except that I wouldn't want to expose Londoners to any unnecessary risk of meeting Donald Trump.
Well, I want to raise one politician in this country, which is Boris Johnson, the London mayor. He's been giving you a few whacks in public. What is your thoughts about Boris, our London mayor?
I know nothing about him, really. I see him, he looks like a good character and probably a nice guy, and maybe he thinks politically it's popular. I will tell you that when I talked about the Muslim ban, there was and that's a temporary ban, just so you understand, but until we figure out what's going on. But when I talked about the Muslim ban, he was very strong against me. He said, like, they have no problems in London at all. And I will tell you, I got, and as you know, @RealDonaldTrump, you have a great Twitter handle, and so do I. @RealDonaldTrump has many millions of people. But I was written letters and phone calls and everything talking about London and talking about the fact that I was right. And, you know, when they talked about possibly keeping me out, you know, there was a little movement and it didn't go anywhere because of a lot of reasons. But when they talked about that, I will say this, there was such opposition from people that live in Britain and Great Britain that there was in the UK generally, in fact, all over Europe, the people were incensed at the concept of me being banned for, you know, speaking really what they said was the truth. And there was, in fact, there was a writer who took a very, very strong stance on it, talking about what was going on and how it was so different than it used to be and how we have to go back to the old days when it was, you know, obviously it was so much better. And as you know, that ban went nowhere. It shouldn't have gone anywhere. It was a disgraceful thing, but it went nowhere. But a lot of people, and I mean thousands and thousands of people, were tweeting saying, you're right, Mr. Trump, you're right. And so, you know, I don't know what's going on over there, but I can tell you there is some unrest, and you know that, Piers, as well as I do.
So far, well over 500,000 people have signed a petition to ban Trump from the UK, showing the strength of feeling against him too.
I don't think Donald Trump should be allowed within 1,000 miles of our shore.
Donald has talked extensively about strengthening US borders, and he believes that Europe should follow the lead.
I can tell you from the United States standpoint, I mean, I'm the front runner by a lot, not just by a little bit, by a tremendous amount, front runner on the Republican side. And let's see what happens. We have some very big states coming up, but I've won most of them. I've won a lot of them. And we're moving along nicely. Part of the reason is because of my views on the borders. I'm a very, very strong person on the borders. And you have to be careful, you have to be vigilant, and you have to be strong. The Syrians, I don't want them coming in. I don't mind building a safe zone and helping to build a safe zone in Syria, but we can't take people in who are undocumented. We can't take people in who may be related in some form to ISIS. And we have to be very tough in this country. What Merkel did to Germany is a shame. It's a sad, sad shame what's happened to Germany. I have friends in Germany. They want to leave Germany. These are people that 2 years ago would tell me that it's the greatest place on earth, and now they want to leave. And so what she did is, I don't know what happened to her, what her thinking was, but I don't think they're going to recover from it very easily, if at all. And you have to be very strong and you have to be very vigilant.
This summer, Britain will take to the polls to make an historic decision on whether to remain a member of the European Union.
Let me ask you about the relationship between America and Britain in particular, but also about Britain's relationship with Europe. As you know, there's a big EU referendum coming in 3 months in June where Britain will vote to stay in Europe or to come out. Do you think this would be a good time for Britain to separate itself from the European Union?
Yes. My mother was born, as you know, in Scotland, in Stornoway. And she loved Scotland. She loved it more than anything. She'd go back every year religiously with my sisters and just had a great feeling for it. And and a great love for the people of Scotland. And I think that Britain will separate from the EU. I think maybe it's time, especially in light of what's happened with the craziness that's going on with the migration, with people pouring in all over the place. I think that Britain will end up separating from the EU. That's my opinion. I'm not endorsing it one way or the other, but that's my opinion. I think a lot of people want to see that happen.
Trump has always had a special relationship with the UK, and he's had a well-publicised fight to get plans approved for the renovation of 2 golf courses in Scotland.
Have a good time, everybody.
Final question, Mr. Trump. It's very important, I think, to everyone in Britain that we have a special relationship with America that's enduring. 2 great nations that have always really been shoulder to shoulder. People over here have been a bit disconcerted by your rise to power and potential ascension to the presidency. Be reassuring for me to the people of Britain. When I defend you, they jump on my throat, but I'm happy to defend you because the Donald Trump I know is a good guy, a decent guy, a hard-working man who may have controversial views, but at least I think has opinions on things and has ideas for how to resolve problems, even if we don't agree with them. But there are people here that don't share that view of you. Talk to the people of Britain and give me a message to reassure them.
Well, first of all, I love Britain. I love the whole area. I just think it's incredible. As you know, I've spent a tremendous amount of money on not only Turnberry, but in Aberdeen, Scotland. I built what many people consider to be the greatest golf course ever built in the dunes. And I took a lot of controversy because the dunes were protected dunes, and I was able to get approval to do it. And I built something that's now really amazing. I think it may be the greatest golf course ever built, and that's a great thing. And people love it. And I do think this, Piers, I have a lot of friends in the UK. I have a lot of supporters in the UK, and I saw that when they were talking about doing some kind of a reprimand. The number of people that support me over there is incredible. I have never seen anything like it. It was like an outpouring of love. And that's why that thing never went. You know, very few people even showed up to discuss it when they talked about that ban, that so-called ban, how crazy it is. But very few people ever even showed up to discuss it. You saw what happened. It just fizzled out because all of these people that were writing to me and tweeting me and doing all of the Facebook stuff with me, it seemed like millions of people. I think they were doing that with your politicians also. I love the UK. I think it's an amazing, just one of my favorite places in the world. I love the people. I just think that if I become president, I know that we're going to have a fantastic relationship, and I will do everything within my power to make sure it stays that way. I think the relationship will be better, actually much better and much stronger than it is right now.
Donald Trump has shaken up this election race like few presidential candidates in history. Latest polls show him with a commanding lead over Ted Cruz, his closest rival for the Republican nomination. But whatever happens over the next few months as the drama unfolds in this race for the White House, Trump has shortly proven one thing. He is not a man to be underestimated.
We are going to make America great again.